Mess with me.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I also thought, like, you just brought up Trump there. Didn't you feel like Trump was on the stage?
Or at least he was up like in the balcony hovering over everyone.
Yeah, so questions. So basically asking our candidates what their thoughts on Trump were. Let's listen to Brad Wilson and what he said about it.
You know, when I think about President Trump and him being the Republican nominee this year, I think it's important to understand why it's important we elect him this year. The middle-class tax cuts, the tax cuts that he put in place a few years ago, are set to expire. And Joe Biden has gone on record saying he wants those to expire. The middle class in the state of Utah cannot afford to let that happen. We need to close the border. We need to make sure we get spending under control in Washington, D.C. And we need to send a Republican from Utah who can set an example and can go back and work with the president to teach and to do the things that we've done here in Utah to all of Washington. There's such an opportunity here for us as a state.
I think it was really amazing how Brad Wilson answered that question, because he was pro-Trump, like, I want to go in there and help with his policies, but it wasn't like a cultish feel at all.
Yeah,
so
I like how you're saying that, right.
He was able to say, hey, there's a certain policy that's expiring. I'm all about that. I'm going to jump in and help.
So let me just ask you a question. Do you think that feels, how do I say, it feels like Trump and your support for Trump is like a litmus test in a lot of the debates, right? And what we're hearing some of our candidates kind of say early in this, right? I was early to endorse Trump. I was early. Like, that's some kind of value add. When you hear a Brad Wilson talk about Trump, and it's a very policy wonky kind of answer, not that cultish, like you said, answer. You think it's refreshing. Does it land well with Republican primary voters in Utah?
That's a great question. I think we're just going to have to wait and see.
Okay. So, all right. Let's listen to the only candidate we haven't given a chance yet, which is Walton. Here's what he said about Trump.
I think it's just sad for all of America to see how Donald Trump has been the most attacked and maligned, persecuted president or presidential candidate in the history of the United States of America. So, as I said in the opening statement, I think it's just disheartening. This is a bipartisan issue, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that the federal government is being weaponized by a current sitting U.S. president. I mean, look what they're doing to him. I mean, immediately they tried to use the 25th Amendment against him. They've tried to, as soon as he took office, as soon as he took office, his first administration, we had Russiagate, which we know was a lie. They were trying to plant spies, essentially, in his cabinet. And then look what they're doing now. They're literally tying him up in court so that he can't campaign. And so I think that there's a lot of things that need to be investigated. I think a lot of the three-letter agencies that make me want to say the four-letter words, we need to look into them. We can't have a system in the United States government. It's a sad day when the current sitting president weaponizes the government against his political opponents.
All right, so we're just going to leave that there for the moment, listeners. We will come back after the break and get back into that kind of love for Trump and kind of tying what's happening in Manhattan to what's happening here in Utah. Stay with us.
Here's a trick to podcasting at work and getting all the Utah news you love.
Download the KSL News Radio app.
Dozens of podcasts a day, right there.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
How many of you have been waiting months or even years to get a crown, but don't have $1,200 to $1,500 to get one? Only Crowns offers same-day crowns at a fraction of the cost of your dentist. Plus, you're in and out in under 90 minutes. Save your money and save your time with Only Crowns. They provide an unmatched lifetime warranty. No dental insurance? No problem. Don't let the price of a crown keep you from enjoying good dental health. Only Crowns is here, and there's nothing like it anywhere in Utah. Done fast, done right, just $6.99 per tooth. They'll offer a limited exam, all the x-rays needed, plus a full zirconia crown with a lifetime warranty and no hidden fees. No one else offers that, and it's yours with Only Crowns. Visit Only Crowns next to Shields and Sandy or online at onlycrowns.com and get details, including how to score a Stanley mug for the first 100 appointments, along with a chance to win an electric bike. No purchase necessary. Onlycrowns.com. That's onlycrowns.com.
It's back, and you will be too, June 13th through the 15th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. It's the Summerfest Arts Fair, celebrating its 40th anniversary, featuring local and regional artists and musicians. You're gonna love this, like you loved it before. Art, painting, ceramics, music, food. Summerfest Arts Fair is loaded with all the things you and the family love the most. Then get set for an amazing lineup of musicians featuring headliners the Lonely Hearts Club Band, Wildwood, and the Solistics. Plus, enjoy other regional musicians like Highline Drifters and Fry Pan Band. This is where local, regional, and national artists come together to celebrate the arts. So discover 165 artist booths, 38 performing groups, and 30 food vendors, along with a plein air art competition. Get full details at logansummerfest.org. logansummerfest.org. Summerfest Arts Fair, June 13th through the 15th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. Get full details at logansummerfest.org.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth. And if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS has raised the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes in recent years. This hits hard if you're behind on your taxes. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges to your tax debts daily. If you owe the IRS today, you'll owe even more tomorrow. And it doesn't stop until you get right with the IRS. The good news is getting right can start with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, the experts at Optima have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Get Mr. Max Performance Missionary Package. Includes one performance suit, 4 and collar stretch shirts, 3 ties, 1 mission belt, 1 pair of Echo or Johnston & Murphy shoes. Just $595.
KSL at night.
Welcome back to KSL at Night. I'm Adam Gardner here with Leah Murray. We're doing a special live segment where we recap the Senate debate. And Leah, we talked a little bit and heard some sound bites of the different candidates talking about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
What was interesting was they had their conversations and their one-liners about I'll be loyal to Donald Trump or whatever. But the question that was asked by Glenn Mills, the moderator, was, what do you think about the Trump saying that he would weaponize the justice system against his political opponent? Very clearly, no one answered that question.
Right, because a little bit, what are you going to say? I mean, like, I'm
Right?
sure, right? Like, whatever you answer is going to land you in hot water, right? And I think, again, excellent debate craft, right? So you
Right.
can say, I'm not going to answer that question. Thank you, Mr. Mills. What I'm going to do is say all of the stuff that I want to say about Trump. But it's interesting to me, and I asked you this right as we went to break, and I apologize for putting you right on the spot. I do just wonder, does a John Curtis, his is not as full-throated a support of Trump as is a Trent Staggs, right? Who is all in. And you're not wrong when you say it'll be interesting to see. But right now we know Curtis is leading in the polls. So I got to think maybe a Trump litmus test was not the right call in the
If we're that's a great question, because if we're purely looking at polls, Curtis has kind of a commanding lead in the polls, and so he's kind of chosen his own lane. His lane is, I'm going to be John Curtis, the guy that I've been for the last 7 years. He really doesn't have anywhere else to go. Trent Staggs, right from the beginning, said, I am MAGA, hear me roar, kind of thing. And so he chose the MAGA lane, and he's polling at about 14, 15%. And so it's like, where does everyone else fit? Where does everyone else go? And so Brad Wilson, during the delegate phase, chose the MAGA lane and said, I'm the first candidate to publicly endorse Trump. And they were, kind of fighting over that perspective. And then the convention gets over and his endorsements from Spencer Cox come out. And the more moderate, the guy focused on governing really came out. And he became policy Brad Wilson, which I love policy Brad Wilson. He's a brilliant policy mind.
Yeah. No, right. Let's listen to the former Speaker of the House talking about how he does representation.
So we're going to talk about, we have a great question that Glenn Mills asked where Brad Wilson, he talks about representing diverse interests. And then we have Congressman John Curtis talking about how he's going to represent America in the House of Representatives, and then Trent Staggs, and then we're going to hear from Mr. Walton.
It's very similar to what I did as Speaker of the House in the state of Utah. People think oftentimes that having a supermajority of Republicans makes the job easy. But in fact, whether it was ushering the largest tax cuts we've talked about, or strengthening Second Amendment rights, or even funding lawsuits against the Biden administration, you have to bring people along, and you have to understand where they're coming from and where they're working from. And I don't think there's anyone more well-suited on this stage to go back to Washington right now and listen to and work with people of very, very different opinions and try to bring consensus and a common goal and objective. That's the way we do things in Utah.
So that's what you just said, the policy Brad Wilson, right? So
it's
that's
impressive.
him, moving into a space that I think a lot of us who watch him recognize. Do you know what I mean? The work that he does. Let's listen to John Curtis answering this question.
The Utah's 3rd congressional district that I've represented for the last 7 years has some interesting contrasts. If you go down to San Juan County, you'll find one of the most conservative counties in the United States. Right next door is Grand County, and you'll find a very liberal, for lack of a better term, county right next door. I like to tease my friends in Grand County. Sometimes they hate that they like me because I do listen to them. I may have very different opinions than they do. I might vote differently than they would expect me to, but they have great respect for me and I have for them. If I were to list one of my superpowers back in Washington, D.C., and I think my colleagues would agree with me, it's my ability to work with people who have very diverse opinions from me and respect them and get things done without compromising my values or their values. This is what is among the most important things in Washington, D.C. People who disagree philosophically, finding a path forward without compromising their values, and it's what I'm very good at.
So I love that. That's his superpower, right? So his ability to work with people who are different from me. I want to kind of now listen to candidate Trent Staggs, who has a little bit of a different message and answer on this question.
Well, I think too often in political discourse, we get talking about this group of people, that group of people. How are you going to represent all people? You know what? The America First agenda that I have committed to champion with President Trump and with a new Senate majority is, I think, something that helps all people. It doesn't matter. I mean, an America First agenda, whether that's going ahead and stopping this crazy printing of money, which has caused the inflation and the Bidenomics that is crushing Utah families. And it's an extra $10,000 to $12,000 a year that's now costing Utah families, whether it's securing the border. That helps, I think, benefit everybody.
So I guess he's not wrong, right? Like any policy that you're pushing that you think is good for the country, you would have to argue is good for everybody. But Adam, do you feel like he misunderstood the assignment in the question?
No, I don't. I think he gets it, and I think you're allowed to ask your own question, and I'm going to give whatever answer I want.
Right.
And it's everyone talking about how they're going to work together, and I can build coalitions to get things done. And he's like, my coalition is MAGA. And whatever kind of Trump, it's a populist agenda, and it's very popular with the Republican Party right now. But he's saying, no, I'm going to go to Congress and I'm going to fight against everything and for the MAGA agenda.
All right, so now let's listen to our last candidate, Walton, talk about how he would answer this question.
$34 trillion in debt. We have an open border where drug cartels are literally business partners with Joe Biden. There's record amounts of fentanyl and meth that are pouring into our nation. Fentanyl overdose is the leading cause of death for Americans between ages of 18 and 45, and the career politicians won't do anything about it. Look, that's why I got into this race. I was frustrated just like you as I've been talking to the people of Utah. I've sensed your frustration. Sometimes Getting a path forward is code for spending. Sometimes building a coalition is code for spending. That's how we go from $34 trillion to $40 trillion and $45 trillion. We need to elect business people who there's no political strings attached to them, like me, who will go and stop the spending. Look, Mitch McConnell, as far as I can tell, when he's getting things done with Chuck Schumer, he's done a great job of passing the Democrat agenda. We need to get things done the conservative way, and we need to save America from going off a fiscal cliff.
So don't you feel, Leah, like he kind of went the same direction as Trent Staggs?
Yes.
Coalition means spending more money.
Right. Well, the thing I was actually thinking about is what you have are two people who have actually legislated before, who are talking about how you actually get things done.
It's hard.
It's hard. Building coalitions, working with people, being respectful of people who disagree with you. And then you have the two people who I don't think have ever legislated before. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Right.
Trent Staggs was a mayor, so he's
right.
had to get things through a city council.
Right, but executive power is very different. And a little bit that runs like a CEO of a company, and everyone you tell, if this is my agenda, we're going to do my agenda. But legislating's a different bag, right? Like there are 435 people in the House. There are 100 people in the Senate. You might not agree, right, with everyone, even in your caucus or your conference. And the point is, if I can't see other people, does that make sense?
Well, let's take a look at the makeup of the Senate. When was the last time we had a 60-member majority? You need 60 votes to get anything passed through the Senate.
Right.
So if you're going to say, I'm only going to deal with the MAGA agenda and MAGA legislators, that's all well and good. And if we want to elect that, great. But when you are in the Senate, you are one of 100, and you have to get 60 votes to pass anything. So even if you get every single Republican, and every Republican is MAGA in the Senate, which they very well could be, you still have to get 9 more Democrats.
Right.
Which 9 Democrats are going to come over to your agenda?
Right. I always kind of tell people, if the first opening gambit in the conversation is you're wrong about everything and you have to do what I tell you, no one actually listens after that.
And it may be true.
It might
you may be wrong
true.
about everything.
Right. But the answer is conversationally or actually doing things requires allies, right? It actually requires compromise. I mean, the other thing I thought was interesting listening to these, and I wanted to know, Adam, what you thought, is Biden is really only the villain in the narrative for Walton. So I thought it was interesting,
that's a good point.
Right? You would think everyone would be saying, as we've been seeing in campaign ads, Bidenomics, Biden's ruining the country, Biden's doing this. And it's really not until Walton that we hear that. And I was surprised, maybe the other 3, what do you think, are trying to differentiate themselves? But I feel like they all should hate Biden.
It's actually, credit to Walton, Americans, Utahns are fed up, I think, with the Biden agenda, by and large. And so they're actually seeing this play out. And I think that was a smart move on Walton's part. Don't forget that you can get breaking news text alerts that will help you stay in the know. KSL News Radio will send a text to your mobile device anytime news breaks. Get started by texting NEWS to 57500.
Okay, coming back after the break, and we'll get into some more of the issues that we heard in that Senate debate. Stay with us.
It is 7:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Mark Jackson. KSL's top story is politics on KSL News Radio. Well, a big Senate debate taking place tonight. Maybe you noticed and heard it right here on KSL News Radio, featuring candidates vying to win the seat currently held by Senator Mitt Romney, Speaker Brad Wilson, businessman Jason Walton, Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs, and Congressman John Curtis gathered at studios of PBS Utah in Salt Lake City. Curtis is endorsed by Utah Governor Spencer Cox, with Staggs getting the endorsement of former President Trump. But no matter who is elected, Utahns, they say, must vote for experience as we enter a new era in politics.
When you're a U.S. Senator from Utah, you're going to go back and represent this state to the other branches of government. And it's important we elect people that have the experience and ability to go back and make a big difference.
Tonight's debate kicks off a marathon week of primary debates that will test former President Trump's broad influence in Utah, a state that has taken a bit longer than most red states to fully embrace the former president. Well, all the snow we got this winter could spell disaster for our wildfire season this summer.
All that water has made the weeds and the sagebrush grow, and now the hot temperatures are drying everything out much earlier than normal.
It's perfect for wildfires to start and to thrive.
Governor Spencer Cox stood alongside dozens of firefighters today to make one everything clear.
We desperately need people to step up. Mostly, I ask that you keep these guys safe.
Amy Kobabe, KSL News Radio.
And our top national story tonight is record heat and severe weather that continues across several states, and now Florida is bracing for potential flooding with up to 20 inches of rain.
Their big story the last couple months has been extreme heat and really dry conditions, but that is about to flip. The flood watches are up. The tropical moisture is about to come in from the southwest and just pour into anywhere south of Orlando, but especially there, Fort Myers and Naples. Through the end of this week, it is going to get really wet really fast.
It's ABC's Ginger Z. And coming up, our own weather is kind of a mix. A little bit of rain, some pop-up storms, a little sunshine, a lot of heat. The full forecast next. KSL News Time 732.
Want to save on some of the biggest names in streaming on the network made for streaming? X marks the spot. Now through September 21st, get 150 megabit Xfinity Internet for 12 months with a 1-year contract. And for just $15 a month, add the new Stream Saver that includes Peacock, Apple TV Plus, and Netflix. That's Xfinity Internet and Stream Saver for just $35 a month. All your favorites all in one place, only from Xfinity. So go ahead and binge some shows, stream some movies, and save some money all at the same time. For more watching and less spending, X marks the spot. Switch to Xfinity, the network made for streaming, and bring on the good stuff. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Restrictions apply. Internet offer requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Equipment taxes and fees extra after promo. Regular rates apply. Currently $54 a month. Actual speeds vary. Stream Saver requires Xfinity, Internet, or TV, and price subject to change.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right. The same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by July 31st, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
We all know what UV rays can do to our skin, but they can also do damage to your car. Keep that from happening with 303 Protectant. 303 Protectant keeps the sun's harmful rays from causing fading and cracking in rubber, plastic, or vinyl surfaces. From the dashboard to the tires, 303 Protectant keeps your car looking new longer. Get 303 Protectant today at Advance Auto Parts. Visit 303radio.com for more information.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
Did you know 96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income? And it's because they claim their benefits at the wrong time. Don't lose $111,000 in Social Security income that's rightfully yours. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits on Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL, News Radio 1027.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. So we still have some delays with the wreck that is clearing right now. Southbound 215, about 3900 south. So I see some delays sliding in past Valley Fair Mall. But after you get past, looks like Meadowbrook Parkway, 4100 south, you're free. Drive about the West Belt. Open new worlds for the blind and disabled. Volunteering to record books at the Utah State Library program for the blind and disabled. Visit blindlibrary.utah.gov/volunteer. Well, Valley weather is going to be pretty nice tonight. Overnight low is going to be back into the low 60s. We enjoyed those last week. Over 90 degrees tomorrow, and then about 100 We're looking at possibility for Wednesday, Thursday this week, triple digits. 84 now, plenty hot. Downtown at 736. I'm Mark Jackson on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM, 1160 AM at KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
KSL at night.
Welcome back to KSL at Night. You're here with me, Leah Murray, alongside my good friend Adam Gardner, and we're talking about debates because we're the politicaliest, nerdiest people you have ever met.
It's nice to find. I know. It's nice to find someone that you can talk to.
It is. Adam, I need you in my life at these times of the year. All right, so I feel like every party a little bit has like its boogeyman of the other party. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or like the boogeyman issue that shows up, right?
And don't you think that exists because we need a collective enemy to run against?
Yeah. And I think there's stuff that we're worried about or something. So it's like I have a feeling about what Republicans are thinking about or what they want to do. And so then I get kind of upset about what their plan is. And I want to introduce one of what I think is the Democrats' boogeymen, and we can like talk about it. After Dobbs' decision, Democrats who spent 50 years not in any way defending a person's right to abortion, because basically what they said was Roe v. Wade made it so, right? They never actually had the argument or defended it anyway. So Dobbs overturns Roe v. Wade. And kind of like a throwaway line, in one of his opinions is Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas going, and given this might apply to, I don't know, birth control, right? Just kind of this throwaway line. Now, I want to be clear. I think nationally, not necessarily in Utah, but nationally, abortion's been a winning issue for Democrats when they run on this
Ohio
issue.
Was a big one.
Yeah, that's right. And
multiple states.
Right. Special elections, we see Republicans who come in supporting abortion don't win. Democrats who come in, supporting pro-life positions not winning. Democrats coming in supporting abortion winning. So I think Democrats are picking, right? That's an issue that is good for us. And they're going to talk about it in a really full-throated way. But they also kind of picked up on that throwaway line from Clarence Thomas and the fact that Alabama decided to get, fun. And I feel like they have now pulled into the conversation IVF treatments.
Right. This all, first of all, I kind of believe that this is a red herring.
Okay.
And we're going to play a clip from John Curtis in the debate on IVF.
IVF is an easy answer, yes. As a matter of fact, I don't know anyone in Washington who doesn't feel the same way, and to suggest otherwise, I think, is just a scare tactic. On contraceptives and birth control, you have to get into the weeds a little bit. We just saw in the Senate a bill that had a lot of poison pills. For instance, part of that bill that they were asked to vote on required companies to provide contraceptives, and the line between birth control, contraceptives, and abortion sometimes grows very thin, and I would need a whole lot more details before I was willing to commit on that.
So this all kind of stems from this Alabama Supreme Court decision where they defined what a child is, what a baby is. And based on the legal definition or pulling out some dictionary, they said, well, the way that the law is written, IVF treatment is actually considered a baby and therefore is not protected under Alabama law. So that is the end of IVF treatment. That's what the Alabama Supreme Court said. And then it became a national firestorm. This is how crazy Republicans are in Alabama that they would do this. Not to mention it wasn't actually legislated at all, and it wasn't done by their governor. And so immediately Alabama legislature called themselves back into special session and fixed this and changed the definition of what a child or a baby or a fetus is. And so they fixed the problem. It was fine. But you were right. Democrats saw this issue, how it gained all this traction nationwide, and they thought, this is exactly what we're going to run politically on.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you think it's a red herring, and I love that Congressman Curtis is saying it's a scare tactic. But I just kind of want to push back a little bit and say it seems like it's plausible, right? So if Clarence Thomas is saying we're going to do a huge landmark overturn, right? So here's the deal. We're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. And I'm going to call into question all of the court cases that have to do with privacy, right? And now we're going to revisit, Griswold v. Connecticut, and we're going to look at, they actually don't do that. But when he opens it up, I'm not sure it's unreasonable for Democrats to look at that and say, this is what happens when Republicans have won elections, right? As former President Trump always says, elections have consequences, right? And because,
they do.
Right, you elected me and now we no longer have Roe. I don't think it's completely unreasonable for Democrats to go, what's next? Like in the domino effect of a very conservative Supreme Court, and if we have a very conservative Senate and we have a very conservative Donald Trump as a president, what's next? So I'm just kind of wondering, does that make sense to your point?
It totally makes sense, but I'll push back with this. One, Justice Thomas did not write the opinion for the majority. He wrote a concurring position. And also, it didn't. I don't believe it mentioned IVF at all, but it doesn't matter because it corresponded with the Alabama decision, and it was a way to. Let's be honest. What Congressman Curtis said was right, in my opinion. That no one is talking about that seriously, having it go away. IVF treatments go away on the federal level. It's just not being talked about. But it's great campaign fodder.
Right. Or it's a really, if I'm trying to whip you up maybe about abortion, why do you think IVF becomes the thing? Just because Alabama did it? I mean, do you not think having conversations about abortion, does that make sense? Is enough of a thing to be talking about?
Well, what Congressman Curtis said is sometimes we get the different definitions conflated with each other. And when we talk about abortion, some are thinking IVF. I'm reminded of the Kansas City kicker who gave his now infamous now infamous speech. He's a Catholic that is against IVF, speaking to other Catholics, and said that he doesn't believe in IVF. And so it kind of, that's dovetailing into the Alabama court, and you can make it a bigger issue, I think, than it really is.
Or it feels like it's popping in a number of places, right? And so if you're a Democrat, you're thinking, clearly on whatever listserv they're on, right? They're getting this message that we have to do this. So healthcare costs was one of the things that resulted in a conversation around IVF. Did you think the candidates really went after the issues of our $34, $33, $35 trillion debt? By the way, I've heard all three of those numbers today in the debate. So a lot, it's a big number. And how they're talking about managing spending and around healthcare costs.
What I really think that we avoided was actually what they would do.
Okay.
What they would cut. So all four candidates up on stage agreed that our debt is outrageous and it needs to be dealt with. But the differences you saw in the different candidates were, I don't know what's appropriate. Do we deal with we can't vote for omnibus spending bills. We had one candidate, Mayor Staggs, he said, I will never vote for an omnibus bill. What's interesting is an omnibus bill is a bunch of smaller bills, spending bills, all put together, which is essentially kind of a budget.
Yeah.
And so he said no on that. And so we kind of got a little differences of opinion on policy there.
I mean, I think the thing was interesting about the answers on healthcare, some of the candidates, and I think it was former Speaker Wilson, making it about states' rights, right? So the argument was, healthcare costs are a problem and the deficit is a problem. And how about you let different states make their own decisions about how we're going to manage healthcare, and that might address some of that issue, which I appreciated. It's not super policy, but at least it gets into the weeds on theory of government, right? And which levels of government should be doing the work. Hey, you know what, listeners? There's one more big issue that matters to voters, and that is immigration. When we get back after the break, we're going to have a conversation around where these candidates were on that issue. Stay with us.
You know KSL is the only news radio for your car, right?
The only news radio for your smart speaker.
Come here in the morning. It's the latest news and traffic. In the afternoon, news and updated weather.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
When you're getting a new roof installed, you don't want to wonder, when are they going to be done? Or even worse, what are they doing up there? You'll never have to ask when you hire IWC Roofing, because their team of certified installers will be texting you pictures from the roof. You're going to know exactly what's going on and what you're getting for your money. And on most homes, they'll do the entire job in one day. In, out, cleaned up, and they'll even power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now, you think you'd pay a premium for this level of service, but IWC does so many roofs. They get the material for less, and they pass the savings on to you. IWC is an Owens Corning certified platinum contractor. Of course, financing is available. Even better, their summer special, up to $2,000 off your quote. But you have to make the call. $2,000 off right now. Call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690. Or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies, because when people don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they can truly thrive, like Marta.
And now we'll hear from our class valedictorian, who with our hard work never ceases to amaze us. Please welcome Marta Moreno.
And Alex.
Hey, Alex, how did the interview go?
I did it! I got the job! I can't believe it!
I knew it. Let's meet up later to celebrate.
And Diego.
Mom! I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow. feedingamerica.org/actnow. A public service announcement brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
For the ones who know safety isn't a catchphrase, it's a culture. And the ones who help make sure everyone makes it home safe. For the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Now, during our Stars and Stripes savings sale, get up to $120 off select sets of in-stock tires. Don't wait. The sale ends July 7th. Big O Tires, the team you trust.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Have you ever been on a coffee date with a man who just got sprung from prison? Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age. The new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
KSL at night. KSL at night.
Welcome back to KSL at Night, a special live segment where Leah Murray and I, Adam Gardner, we kind of recap the Senate debate. And we've gotten really into the weeds. I'm really excited that we get to talk about this final piece on immigration. We're going to actually just get right into it. We're going to start with Jason Walton, his position on immigration.
Joe Biden is business partners with the Mexican drug cartels, plain and simple. And think about it. What Joe Biden's getting is over 3 million illegal immigrants who are coming into America each year, who he and the Democrats presume are going to vote Democrat. And what the cartels are getting is more than a 20-fold increase in human trafficking revenue and a 20-fold increase in the fentanyl and meth and heroin drug trafficking revenue. It's not right. And at what cost? This sick political trade is costing tens of thousands of Americans' lives. Donald Trump had it right, and he'll solve this day one. End the catch and release policy, implement the stay in Mexico policy. And then, so for the people, the stay in Mexico policy means that when illegal immigrants come and they give their cockamamie excuse as to why they need asylum, and over 95% of them are rejected, they should just be remaining in Mexico instead of right now where they welcome them in, give them a phone, a plane ticket, some money, and then a plane ticket near you, right here in Utah. It's not right.
First of all, wow. He starts right off by accusing Joe Biden's business partners of being in a relationship with the cartel.
Yeah, I mean, again, Biden for Walton is the villain in the narrative, right? So I think...
Which I kind of like.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
if you're watching a GOP debate, I kind of like
you
that.
want to have some big bad that we can, like, root against?
Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to attacking each other, maybe. You like that better?
Well,
Yeah,
and there was some really good policy points that Jason Walton made, too, because he said he basically named these executive orders that Donald Trump had put in place. We saw immigration go down. He was such a tough talker. I think what it did was prevent a lot of folks from actually trying.
Right.
And then Biden came in and was very proud that he reversed all of those executive orders. And I think it's been kind of a disaster for him ever since.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting a little bit, this debate didn't get into it because Biden has issued executive order, I think, yesterday or this weekend, which is kind of shutting down the border
It's
a little
hard
bit.
to not look pretty dang political when you do
Yeah,
that.
but who cares if you're getting what you want him to do?
Agreed.
And so maybe that's why Biden doesn't show up as the villain in the other people's narrative, right? Like it could be, a little bit they're saying we got him to do what we wanted and we don't really want to go to that well.
Great point. Next, we're going to hear from former Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson.
When Joe Biden became president with over 90 executive orders, he opened up the border. We've had tens plus million of illegal immigrants flood into this country, creating a humanitarian crisis and a security crisis that we are all aware of. It's very simple. The border needs to be closed. We do need to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. And I do think we need to finish building the wall. A few years ago, John Curtis said that building the wall was pent-up racism. I don't believe that's the case. I think building the wall is like having a good fence with a good neighbor. It makes you good neighbors. These are all things that are important in terms of our ability to manage our border instead of turning it over to the drug cartels and foreign nationals in other countries that are trying to destroy the United States of America.
So I'm just going to be honest with you when I say I like here Biden is the problem. Right, so his policy position, those 90 executive orders were the issue, not finishing the border wall. Those are all policy positions. So rather than making Biden a drug cartel business partner,
I get what
right?
you're saying.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a good point.
right? That's a villainous story.
So he's picking the same villain, but he's describing why he's a villain and how he can fix it.
And it's not. How do I say? Like
it's not personal.
It's not personal. It's like you came in, you did this, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be doing this policy. And it doesn't lead people, I think, to hate. Does that make sense? Whereas if I'm like, this person is a cartel partner, and I watch movies, right? Those are the people you hate, right? So a little bit in Walton's answer, I think, is, just a meanness. Does that make sense? And so I like the Brad Wilson answer better. It calls out Biden for the policy mistakes that have led to the crisis at the border, without calling him out. Does that make sense? Like it's not an ad hominem attack.
That's a great point. I hadn't considered that. I'm really excited for these next two, and then we'll kind of wrap up this conversation on immigration and give our thoughts. The next one is John Curtis.
Listen, nothing in the United States Senate or Congress is going to happen until we secure the border. That's very clear. And it's also very clear Joe Biden could do this tomorrow if he wanted. All he'd need to do is reinstate Remain in Mexico. If you look at what Republicans produced in the House in H.R. 2, that's a recipe for everything, our whole wish list, which I supported, and we've got to figure out a way to get that into law. Now, you asked for some specifics, and I'd like to give some specifics that nobody else has even tried to touch on. How would we fix this? I have a bill. It's called a state-sponsored visa bill. It would actually give visas to governors around the United States that were separate from the federal visas that they manage themselves. They would be responsible for monitoring people that came into the state and how these visas were used. It's a good bill. It's bipartisan and has a real chance of progress. The other bill that I have removes country caps. If you get down into the weeds, you'll see that India has more people that could want to come to this country than Sweden. By removing those caps, we could make that happen. Now, give me just a minute to respond to Mr. Wilson.
I'll give you 30 seconds, and then everyone else will get some of that time as well.
Listen, Brad, if the best criticism you can come up with me is a segment from an interview that happened 7 years ago out of context, then I'm feeling pretty good about that. I may have said that. I don't know what it was because it was out of context and clearly doesn't represent my 7 years of work in Congress.
So in the debate, we got a little bit of back and forth. That was exciting to watch. What I also liked about Representative Curtis's answer was he said, as a team, we have come up with H.R. 2, and put all the best ideas forward, and we need to get that passed. So he's already showed like we have some there's already something on the table that we can do to fix the problem. And then the second thing he did was he came up with his own out-of-the-box policies on the state-run visa program, which I think is kind of a cool idea. And so he added the teamwork of the House of Representatives and his own, here's what I'll do on day one.
Yeah, and don't you think a little bit he sounds like an incumbent in that space, right? So here is someone who's actually been in Congress, who actually knows how things works. H.R. 2 is a list of the things we want. If I'm in the Senate, here's our wish list, and I'm going to try to push that through. And actually, you feel like he could get it done.
Yeah, great point. Next, we're gonna finish off here with Mayor Trent Staggs.
This is a huge issue. I mean, as I've traveled the state for over a year now, border, budget, regulatory reform. These are the top three. And the border, the so-called bipartisan bill, it was not, I think, anything but. I mean, here we have President Biden, who has created this problem. He undid so much of what was successfully implemented by President Trump. He and Secretary Mayorkas, who should have been impeached a long time ago. He is wholly incompetent. I think it's actually by design. We've had 10 to 12 million people invade this country during the Biden administration. And I remind folks, this is 3 times the population of our state. It's massive when you put it into that context. The solution is simple. Build the border wall, remain in Mexico, e-verify, and cutting off any benefits to illegal immigrants. When you do that, they will largely self-deport, I believe, and the problem will start to correct itself. But this is a massive problem that has several consequences across many communities, including my own.
Right. So now what we hear is, and there's some policy positions there. So what I actually thought was cool in this set of answers, right? Everyone thinks immigration's an issue. You would kind of think all Republicans would think it was an issue in the same way, right? Like no one up here is going, it's a great thing that's happening at the border, right?
Right.
So, but their answers on how you deal with it differentiate themselves. So if I'm a Republican primary voter listening to that, I'm like, all right, yeah, immigration's a big issue. What do I think is the most important thing? How do I think it could be solved? And I've got not a lot of, how do I say, just blarney, right? Like there's not a lot of just like talking here. There's actual real positions from each of our candidates on this particular issue.
I was actually really glad to see that through the debate. There was a lot of show horsing going on, but there was a lot of work horsing there too. And a lot of them have had political experience, so they knew how to talk about the issues. They knew their lines, but it wasn't like, and we're going to talk about the Congressional District 2 race, there was certain phrases that needed to get in every single answer, and that kind of got tiresome. And I think it was really kind of great to see that there was a little variety.
Yeah, I feel like, and so disagree with me, please, but I think these are like high-quality candidates. Does that make sense?
Right,
so the debate, they were kind of like, this is a level up, what they are talking about.
Stay up to date. As news breaks, you can get the latest information from KSL News Radio via text. Just text NEWS to 57500 to get started. Next on KSL at Night, we're going to be talking about Congressional District 1 and 2 debates. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 8 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Mark Jackson. KSL's top story is politics on KSL News Radio as the U.S. Senate debate takes place tonight, featuring Speaker Brad Wilson, businessman Jason Walton, Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs, Congressman John Curtis at studios of PBS Utah and Salt Lake City. The majority were united in support of former President Trump. Staggs, who has Mr. Trump's endorsement, says most important is to implement America First policies.
Whether that's going ahead and stopping this crazy printing of money, which caused the inflation and the Bidenomics that is crushing Utah families. And it's an extra $10,000 to $12,000 a year that's now costing Utah families.
Wilson is endorsed by Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and Staggs won the convention vote. New updates revealed in the Salt Lake Temple renovations 4.5 years into that project. Director of Historic Projects Andy Kirby says expansions include space for rooms and strengthening of structural foundations.
Well, we'll have 2 baptistries.
We will have 12 additional ceiling rooms. We've placed base isolators, which are large mechanical devices that allow the temple to move less than the earth in an earthquake.
Some crews have worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And Malawi's president says soldiers searching mountains and forests near a city in northern Malawi after a military plane carrying the country's vice president and a former first lady went missing. The plane carrying the 51-year-old vice president, former first lady, and 8 others had been expected to land Monday morning local time, but bad weather and poor visibility were reported. Coming up, our own weather is going to be pretty good, ahead of triple digits this week. I know summertime's upon us right now. Full forecast next. KSL News Time 8:02.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but